and Michael Hicks from the School of Music. What I think I will propose that we do is give each of you a chance to talk for a few minutes, 3, 4, maximum of 5. React to the production from your own particular perspective. Then we'll take whatever few minutes we need to for you to interrogate each other about your responses. Then I want to be sure that we have some time for question and answer with the audience. Do you have any preferences to where we start? Would you start right? Start down there?
Yeah, I think
What do you think, Michael? You ready to go? I'm fine. Why don't you start us off?
Okay. I'm really talking about the show, not so much this production of the show. And essentially, I would want to say there's 3 things not to overestimate about this show and 1 thing not to underestimate about it. First of all, the first thing not to overestimate about this show is that it is a presentation in some way of rock and roll in the 1950s, early 1960s. There's a lot of definitions of rock and roll and a lot of confusion about it. This little window shade for automobiles is a curiosity here. Rock and roll, it says, and then it's got the alleged participants here. We've got Little Richard, okay, Fats Domino, Buddy Holly, Nat King Cole. I'm not sure about that. It doesn't qualify. Little Anthony and the Imperials, sometimes. The Platters, I don't think so. One thing, though, that is true about this is that, except for Zora Taylor, who was for a time in the Platters, it's all guys. It's all guys, because rock and roll is essentially a high testosterone area. And I don't know how many female really rock and roll artists you can name from the 1950s. There's certainly the so-called girl groups of the early 1960s who are usually singing about their longing for the guys who were in the other groups. But I don't want to try to get into defining rock and roll, but it's a term that's been used a lot in connection with this show. And I would say, for me, rock and roll is in that little phrase in the song Searchin', when you hear the Coasters do it. And Billy Guy in the original recording, he's singing, I've been searching, and he says, my goodness, like that. And that's rock and roll to me, because there's a certain kind of power in it, a certain kind of attitude, and a certain kind of vocal isometrics that most MDT people are not going to be involved in because it's hard on the voice, and so it doesn't last very well. Anyway, there is a certain element of rock and roll that is occasionally in the show, occasionally, but not often. I'll just say that even the song, That's Rock and Roll, Mike Stoller said, the funny about that song, the funny thing is, it's not even rock and roll. So even that song is not rock and roll. The second thing, don't ever overestimate this show as a presentation of racial equality in the record business in those days. There's a lot of discussion in the programs and out in the foyers about the sociology of all of this. But recognize that, you know, with these songs, with the original recordings, you had, simply put, white guys who owned the companies, who wrote the songs and the arrangements. They trained the performers in the business, and then they collected the profits from the hits. The economics of it is the same as in minstrel shows and lots of vaudeville and so on, where African Americans were part of the novelty acts. And I'll just read you right here from the back of the Coasters' first album, in which the song Searchin' begins. This is the liner notes for this. The Coasters always call to mind the tagline from a record of theirs. There's a riot going on. We'll hear a little of that in a second. Now listen to how he interprets that. They certainly are a riot. On stage or on records, they are one of the most amusing acts in show business. The originality of their handling of folk humor has no present-day parallel. One must fall back on golden memories of Bert Williams to put them in perspective. I don't know if you know Bert Williams. So they're saying they're in that Bert Williams tradition. Well, I think that the show, being a celebration of the songs of Leiber and Stoller, is all very well and good. But the songs of Leiber and Stoller would be nothing and would have not lasted at all were it not for these performers. And the show's not called the celebration of the music of the Coasters, for example, who have originally the bulk of the songs in the show. So don't overestimate the sociology, the racial equality that is suggested as being somehow presented in the show. Don't overestimate, third, this show as a presentation, though, of Leiber and Stoller's work that really does, in many cases, reflect a very gritty side of African American experience. And the songs that do it best are not in the show. And I brought a few excerpts here. First of all, the song Framed. It's a guy singing about having been framed by the police.
I was walking down the street, minding my own affairs, and two policemen grabbed me unawares. They said, "Is your name Henry?" I said, "Oh, why, sure." They say, "You the boy we've been looking for."
Lied and the judge lied and the witnesses lied and so on. You have another song that's by Leiber and Stoller. We have another one, Riot in Cell Block Number 9.
On July the 2nd, 1953, I was serving time for armed robbery. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I was sleeping in my cell. I heard a whistle blow, then I heard somebody yell. There's a riot going on. There's a riot going on. There's a riot going on. Up in cell block number 9.
It's not all that amusing to me, or all that comic. And there's lots of discussion, the rest of it, of the guard coming and so on, and how even when they put the riot down with nerve gas, every now and then they say, there's still a riot going on. And finally, just a little bit from the song, What About Us?
He's got a house made of glass, got his own swimming pool. What a guess. We got a one-room shack, up by the sticks by the railroad track. What about us? What about us? Don't wanna cause no fuss, but what about us? He's with a beautiful chick.
And that this got airplay at all is pretty amazing. Some of the things that it says, the later verse, he goes to eat at the Ritz, big steaks, that's the breaks. We eat hominy grits from a bag, what a drag. He's got a car made of suede with a black leather top, got it made. If we go out on dates, we go on a box on roller skates. And then this chorus, what about us? What about us? Don't want to cause no fuss, but what about us? These are the songs you're not going to hear at Smokey Joe's Cafe, so remember that there's a whole other side to Leiber and Stoller. Let me just end by saying, don't underestimate the value of this production at BYU. I think, just for example, Teach Me to Shimmy, another Coasters song. Elder Stephen L. Richards said in 1919, he said that the shimmy was the most fearful thing ever introduced in dancing? All in favor? And here was so wonderful to see this with Summerwood doing, in pants, which, by the way, women were not allowed to wear when I was a student here just before that, doing that song with the brethren. And, teach me to shimmy. And so it was just a wonderful thing. I'll read you one other quote here. This is by a member of the First Presidency. Never in my lifetime has there been such a whining, shameless, sometimes perverted sensuality in our music as there is today. Popular songs are filled with expressions of the lowest immorality that some of our older ones do not understand, but I am sure that some of the youth do. Now, who would you think that is, and when? That's J. Reuben Clark in 1946. 1946. And I'll simply say, it is the task of every generation to condemn the corruption of its children. And it's so refreshing and nourishing to me to see that music, however domesticated it may be in this production, to see the music that I loved as a child, as a young person, and that my parents hated, being treated at BYU, finally, as not only benign, but actually important in some way. And that's what I want to say.
Thanks very much. Denise.